All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. Tonight, I finally got some other projects out of the way, got a little caught up. So tonight, you guessed it, by the green glasses, I'm going to be playing around with the ComMarker, doing some more testing. My wife has actually came up with a few projects she wants me to do. So tonight, we're going to go over a couple of different mediums. I've got some coasters that are made from Slate that I want to kind of play with and show you what I found with those. I've got some painted tile that is actually going to be an experiment, so we're going to see how this goes. I also have some stainless steel little salt and pepper shakers. These things came blank, and I'm not one of those that can keep them straight just based on the holes, and so we're going to put some text on those and just kind of demonstrate the use of the Rotary that comes with the ComMarker B4. So that's going to be kind of the gamut that we're going to run tonight. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going over the particulars about the machine. I've put out a couple of videos with the machine. It is, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a 20-watt fiber laser, ComMarker B4. You'll get to see how it works. We'll go over it. I'm going to kind of reiterate some of the features about the machine that I like so far and some of the advantages that I see with it. So if that's something you're into, stick around and we're going to get started. All right, guys, you gotta love technology. Luckily, I had the other camera set up to capture the engraves. This is a white tile. It does have clear coat on it. I'm gonna be running it at 10,000 millimeters per second, 100% power, and I've got the frequency set to 40. I was actually really impressed with the way that this turned out. It managed to discolor the white underneath the clear enamel, it appears. And then it kind of raised the lettering up. And I'm going to show you that a little bit better on the big camera. But right now I'm just trying to do a little voiceover so that you can actually see the working portion of this engrave. We caught this thing on sale at Tractor Supply. My wife seen it. It was $4.99 for this guy. And she was like, you know what? There's room right here. You could engrave this. And I thought, what better machine to use than the fiber, because I really haven't done this type of material with the fiber. And I was really, really pleased with the results. And another thing about a fiber, guys, they're really fast, as you can tell by the video. This is, like I said, 10,000 millimeters a second at 100% output. And this is a 20-watt output fiber, ComMarker B4. And I'm just going to let you see. And then I'll go back and we'll kind of touch on some stuff. I just want to show you some of these project videos here. All right, so that turned out pretty well, guys. The next medium up is going to be some Slate. Like I said, I apologize for how I'm having to do this video. Apparently, I've got a bad video memory card in my camera. It is no longer with us, and I've got some new ones ordered. This Slate is one of those things. I haven't done a lot of plain Slate on the laser. I have done some painted Slate. It does a really, really good job of contrasting. But this is just running 100. I think I'm running 10,000 millimeters a second, 100% power, and I've got the frequency set to 40 on this. So it gives you a good engrave. The contrast isn't really that great without it being painted. So one thing that you may want to look into doing is, maybe painting it if you're going to run this power setting. But it's decent contrast, but to get it a little bit darker, you could paint the tile. And I'm also going to play around one day. I think I'm going to do a video of just Slate with the laser, and that way I can do a power scale test and everything, get a little bit better results. But this particular one, I decided that I didn't like that. It was a little faint, so I went ahead and just run it a second pass. And the machine, like I said, the thing about especially with this machine, is as long as you don't touch it once you've engraved it, you can run as many passes as necessary. So when it comes to experimental materials and stuff like that, that does give you a little bit of a benefit. And I've had really good luck with the engrave going exactly back where it did the first time. So unlike, some machines, I hear people say a lot of times, if you run multiple passes, you have problems, especially if you have belt issues or adjustments. I haven't ran into that with this particular machine. The Galvo design seems to work pretty well. So let's move on to another material. All right, guys, so up next, we're going to take the chuck. And the way this machine's built, of course, it has the screws in the bed, the little screw holes. And the chuck itself has slots that you can use to secure the chuck in a manner to where it won't move as much. Now, since I'm only doing a couple of these things, I'm just going to make sure that I've got it nice and tight so that it doesn't move on its own. And I'm going to set the chuck up to do these are little salt and pepper shakers. And at the end of the video, guys, I'm going to show you what the finished product looks like on the good camera. But like I said, memory card failure, and I lost a whole bunch of video and had burnt my blanks up. So bear with me in this voiceover creation. But one of the first things that I will tell you about using the chuck with this machine, as you can see, I use the fiber itself to notate on the back of the chuck what the rotation steps are. It's 12,800. I did get that information from ComMarker. I couldn't find it readily available anywhere on the internet or any of the literature. I may have overlooked it, but and if I did, that's on me. But just to make sure I don't forget with any of my chucks and rotaries, I actually use the fiber to mark somewhere on the machine so that, you know, when I set that thing down there, it'll remind me to go in and make sure I've got those steps set correctly, because when you have multiple chucks and rotaries sitting around, there can be some confusion about that. All right, so once you've got your rotary set up the way you want it, you've got to make sure you have the appropriate axis selected in the rotary setup. I'm using the little test function just to make sure that the rotary is going the direction that I want it. Another thing that you have to take into consideration is the angle of scan of the design. And Lightburn has a nifty little tool that will tell you if you have your scan angle wrong. The next step is going to be to confirm the diameter of the object in which you are engraving, and make sure that in the chuck and rotary setup you go in and add the object diameter to those settings, because if that is not correct, with text, your text is either going to be spaced too far apart or spaced too close together. So you're going to want to pay attention to that and make sure you do it. I have made some mistakes and didn't do that, and text will end up overwriting itself. So just be sure to measure the diameter and input that in the Lightburn first. So the next thing that you'll notice here, guys, is I'm using my green tape approach to make sure that the burn is going to go exactly where I want it and burn the way that I want it, because I was having trouble seeing that little red light on that reflective surface. It looked like it was going to work the way it should as far as the size of the font, but the only way that you can be sure with the rotary on this machine that I have found is you actually have to burn it. So I use the green tape. Now, because I'm not accustomed to how much green tape this machine will penetrate, I decided to use multiple layers of green tape on this design and go ahead and run it just to see if the chuck is going to rotate appropriately and if my settings are correct and all that. And then once I do that, look at it, confirm that everything is the way it needs to be, and then replace the material into the chuck. Now, one thing about this chuck, it's an advantage and a disadvantage. There's no tools required to place your items in the chuck. It uses a spring system that you can remove the pin and adjust the pressure on the chuck. And then all you got to do is turn those little pins and it'll release the teeth. You can also reverse the spring, and it causes it to put reverse tension so that you can grip things from the inside outward. Which is pretty versatile, and it's great for little small things. ComMarker had asked me to do some tumblers with this. But guys, the tumblers that I have are way too big for this machine, so I opted for these little stainless steel salt and pepper shakers that I have here. These are like literally some Dollar General or Dollar Tree little salt and pepper shakers, but they're completely stainless steel, which is a good medium for this machine. Okay, as you can see in this video, guys, I've got one side of it done, and you just kind of pinch that and turn those little handles right there, and it releases the object, and then when you let go of it, the spring pulls it back tight and it clamps down. As long as it's got a good surface to grip to, with small items, it holds it really well. You can see my power setting is probably a little hot for this. I could have went a lot lower and still got a good engrave, but it was nice and deep. It actually looked engraved. It was not marked, so that was kind of cool. But those little things, easy to burn, and guys, you see how quick that was. So now we're going to go ahead. I've got the salt one done, and we're going for pepper. And you can see how easy it is to release the chuck and get it repositioned. Just making sure it's secure in there, because the little plastic part, it has like little teeth on it. So I wanted to make sure that the teeth were sitting in there good, so it didn't pop out halfway through the engrave. The burn, like I said, it's really, really quick. Doesn't take but just a few seconds, and I've got this. I'll have this one marked as pepper as well. The chuck, I will say, although I like the easy, simple release, just keep in mind, guys, it does have limitations, because if the force of your object pulling down on that chuck exceeds the spring pressure, then it's not going to hold it real well. But for small objects such as what I'm doing here, rings, if you wanted to engrave thimbles, if you had somebody that, you know, was into sewing and wanted something engraved on a thimble, or any kind of like candlesticks, stuff like that that's rather small, it works really well. But keep in mind, this machine only has a 110 by 110 work area without changing the lens, and so it's mostly for small. And you can see this thing is throwing some sparks. I could have definitely dialed back the power on that, but like I said, good engrave, good solid engrave on those guys. All right, so for the next one, you'll notice that now I have the spring reversed on the chuck, so that instead of pinching, it's actually pulling. And I did this so that I could do this ring, and just slide the ring on there and the fingers will hold it. This is where I think that this chuck, this is kind of going to be where it comes in really, really handy. And this is a little ring that they send you with the machine that I'm doing an engrave on, and that is a really, really fine font, but it does really quick work of the ring, and turned out pretty good. All right, guys, sorry for the way that I'm having to throw the video together, but due to that SD card letting me down, I had already burnt up all my blanks and didn't have any more, so we did a little voiceover. Let me know if this is a good approach. Maybe this is a simpler for the future. But we're going to go through some of the projects that we did on the machine last night, because it's the next day, having to redo this on the video. But this is the tile. All right, it turned out really, really nice. We only picked up 2 of these. Brandy saw them at Tractor Supply. They were in the sale bin. We got them for $4.99, and she wanted some phrases put on them to use for decorations, and she love it when the wife picks it up and goes, "Ooh, you could engrave this, couldn't you?" So, but it turned out really well. I think this actually may become one of my new mediums. I like the white tile. I'm not sure if every white tile will react this way, but I plan to find out anyway. But it did a really good job. I like it. It looks almost as if it was painted and then the coating was put on the tile after the fact, which is pretty amazing. So the white tile, definitely a good medium for the fiber laser. Now, slate. I've done some slate before. Most of it was painted black, then engraved. This is straight slate with no painting, no treatment, no nothing. And it turned out okay. Now, I haven't sprayed this with any kind of sealer or polyacrylic or anything like that to see if it'll make it pop a little more. But I got a nice engrave on it, but the contrast, because of the fact that it is slate and it basically just removes a little small layer of the material, the contrast is not all that great. I may play around with power settings later in a video and try to come up with how to get, maybe add some color to it, get a little bit darker gray. Because if this was black painted slate, that would contrast really well. Or if it was, any other color than just slate colored, it would contrast. But something to consider if you're doing slate is that it doesn't necessarily burn like wood does and discolor, or like the paint does and turn black. It just kind of scratches the slate and gives it this gray finish. So, but you can, fix that with the use of paint or some type of dye or whatever to try to put a different color on there. Now, the salt and pepper shakers. Those I thought turned out pretty well. I went a little hot with the power, so it's actually engraved in there pretty deep. And I did both sides so that you can see them regardless of which way they're sitting. And they do say salt and pepper. And I got it right. One with the less holes is the salt, and the one with more holes is the pepper. Little known fact that some places over in Europe, they do it right the opposite. Because I had to make sure when I engraved them that I engraved them properly, because that's not something I keep up with. That's why I wanted labels on them. So there you go. But the ring turned out pretty well. It's still on the machine. I'm going to take that out of there. The ring turned out pretty well. It is really hard to see that text, guys, but the text actually turned out good. I could probably back the power down a little bit on this anodized material. But it is very readable, as long as your eyes aren't, too bad. You can read it pretty well. The One thing that I will say about the rotary that comes with this machine, as far as the size of the work area, the items that I intend on engraving with the fiber laser, if you're going to try to do like large tumblers, guys, just know that as much as I enjoy the fact that the spring system is really quick for turning out things fast because you don't have to have any tools, you basically just take your thumb and you can kind of depress the spring or pull the spring one way or the other, and the teeth either open or close depending on which side you have the spring on. That's really handy for small objects, but to be honest, if you put anything too big on here, at some point the weight of the object is going to overcome the tension of those springs, and I think it's going to lead to trouble. Now, you know, using a roller or wheel up underneath it could probably overcome that, but I don't know that large tumblers would be ideal for this machine. Wine glasses, if you were going to coat wine glasses or something, or if you had you know, small plastic cups or something that you wanted to engrave, something lightweight, I think you'd be good. But with the 24 and 30 ounce tumblers that I typically would engrave, I think this guy may be a little too small for that. But with candlesticks, you know, the little stainless steel shot glasses, stuff like that, I think all of those are really good medium for this machine as far as the engraving area. The fact that it is so quick to repeat. Like I said, once you bolt down the rotary to the machine, you don't have to worry about anything moving. I think that would make it really quick to do repetitive engraves. So with all of that said, guys, all in all, the rotary for rings and jewelry and stuff was primarily the reason I got it, was for rings and for bracelets and stuff like that. I do want to try some of the silicone bracelets and so forth with the rotary and see how those work out. But that's probably a project for another day. Right now I've got a lot of stuff I've got to get caught up on, but I did want to share with you guys a few of the ideas that I have for the fiber laser and just kind of show you what the rotary is capable of doing. And stay tuned to the Clack Shack, and there'll be more about the machine. If you're interested in looking at the specs or maybe looking into getting one for yourself, I will drop those links down below. You can go check those out and see what you think about it there. But until next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.